We will start off item number one, 8111 RFP selection process update. And Ms. Ferriero, if you want to update us on where we are.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Mayor. Good morning,
Good morning.
Commissioners. Good morning.
You say good morning, I say good morning with energy.
There you go. I hope you all had a great weekend. Again, Jennifer Ferriero, Director of Housing and Community Development. And I want to start just to indicate the purpose of this meeting. So the purpose of the meeting is just to provide you with the status update of where we are with the solicitation for 8111 South Dixie Highway. It's also an educational moment for our newly elected commissioner, Commissioner Warren, just to be brought up to speed in terms of what efforts have taken thus far. I want to preface my presentation by also saying that we will not be presenting any of the recommendations provided by any of the committee members. We just want to get some feedback on you on how you'd like that process to be. And this is, we're making sure of that so we keep the integrity of the solicitation in place. Again, this is not the time where we will be reviewing those recommendations. A quick highlight of previous actions. The city purchased this property in 2012 for $2.9 million. Over the years, starting in 2012, we have undertaken various community engagement efforts to seek feedback from the community in terms of what they'd like to see on the existing site. Most recently, starting in August of last year, we held various virtual and in-person meetings to seek additional input for the site. As a result of those meetings, on October 5th, the City Commission determined that declared the property as surplus and authorized the city staff to move forward with developing a solicitation for an invitation to negotiate document. That document was provided to the City Commission on December 14th, and it was approved and authorizes to move forward with publishing the document and seeking solicitations from developers. A quick highlight of the project goals and objectives that were outlined in the invitation to negotiate. In essence, we were looking for a proposal that fulfilled the highest and best use for the site, that provided a robust mix of uses, including housing, commercial and retail, entertainment purposes, open space, and other cultural recreational activities, provided for economic impact, considered and incorporated the waterfront location of the property, created an architectural landmark in South Dixie Highway, provided a noticeable gateway to the city. We wanted a project that enhanced the city's South End's unique identity and sense of place, contributed to the overall quality and surrounding neighborhoods, incorporated art, considered redevelopment of the golf course, considered the potential redevelopment of the adjacent shopping center, and generated a return through the city through the purchase and/or lease of the price. And/or lease in accordance with the price and/or new tax revenues that would be attributable to this project. One of the special considerations, or some of the special considerations and preferences that were highlighted in the ITN was a project that incorporated connectivity to the C-151 canal, a project that considered the adjacent shopping center known as Palm Coast Plaza. We wanted a project that complemented the South Dixie Highway, and a project that required a welcoming entrance monument to our city on the southeast corner of the lot. So that once the document was prepared and approved by the City Commission, it was made available through the procurement official's website on December 16th. It was posted in the Palm Beach Post on December 20th, and we had a submittal deadline of Thursday, February 18th, 2021. We wanted to make sure that we gave the developers ample time to respond to the solicitation so that we were able to get an accurate picture of what it was that they were proposing. As a result of that, a total of 9 solicitations were received, and I'm going to read out who those individuals or who those partners were. So it was Blue Way Partners, L&M Development Partners, MS Squared, and Coconut Properties, Falcon and Associates, LLC, and Encore Capital Management, Flagler Realty and Development, Inc., and Woodfield Development, Gilbane Development Company, Hyperion Group, LLC, Marcus Equities, OAG Investments 4 LLC, aka Office America Group, RDG Development Group, and Gardona Partners, LLC, and Related Development, LLC. This is the development group out of Miami, not development companies that's founded by Stephen Ross. It's a different development group. So as indicated in the invitation to negotiate, the city established 2 review committees to review the proposals that were received. One of them was an internal review committee, which consisted of city staff, and those proposals were reviewed on March 26, 2021. We also put together a citizens review committee, which consisted of 7 members, and those individuals reviewed the proposals on March 30th, 2021. The Citizens Review Committee consisted of 1 resident from each of the commission districts as appointed by the commissioners, 1 South End resident of the city as elected by the mayor, and 1 business owner in the South End of the city as selected by the mayor. And both review committees ranked the proposals based on the following criteria. And again, I won't go through the details of what that entails. That will further be presented to you at an upcoming special commission meeting. But they reviewed the proposals based on the project development concept and the consistency with the project goals. That was for a total of 21 points. Public benefits for up to 15 points. They reviewed what was proposed in terms of the waterfront location for up to 10 points, the developer qualifications for up to 25 points, economic benefits for up to 10 points, and the purchase terms and conditions for up to 15 points for a total of 100 points. So this is where we're moving into the next process and where we will need some guidance from this governing body. We'll touch a little bit on that towards the end of the presentation. So the ranking of the committees will be presented to the City Commission at a special commission meeting. That's what was outlined in the ITN, and that's the process that will be presented to you. We will work with City Administration to determine the appropriate date to present that to you. At this special commission meeting, and the primary purpose is for us to be able to present to you the proposals that were received, and where you would have the ability to elect up to 6 proposals. And shortlist them. You may be able to select 4, you may select 3, it'll be at your discretion, but you have the ability to select up to 6. One of the things to keep in mind that we will discuss at the end of this conversation or the end of this presentation is if you would like to review all of the 9 proposals now before they are presented to you, or if you would like to wait to review the proposals after the short list rankings have been presented and after you have shortlisted the proposals. We can also provide you with the recordings from both of the citizens review and the internal review meeting. Those were held via Zoom, and you would also be able to review those as well. So keep that in mind as we move forward with this presentation. I wanted to give the commission just an idea in terms of what the thought process is and how the proposals will be presented to you. So what you see before you in this slide is just a sample of how I plan on presenting that to you. We'll have an area where we'll discuss project highlights. But before I move forward, I just want to say that this is just something I put together. This is not reflective of any one proposal. It's just to give you an idea of how they'll be presented. But we'll discuss some of the project highlights, some of the key considerations that were brought forward in the proposal. We'll talk about some considerations, things that may or may not, that you may want to keep in the back of your mind as you make the selection. We'll provide some visuals so you have some visual understanding of what it is that they're proposing. And then we will also give you the total points for both the internal and the Citizens Review Committee. We'll give you the combined score and how they ranked. So we will do that for every single project, all of the 9 proposals that were received. And then towards the end, we will kind of summarize all of it so you could see where they stand or where all of the developers stand in terms of their ranking, both with the city and with the and with the Citizens Review Committee. So we'll put all of that together, and that's the thought process in terms of presenting that to you. But keep that in mind so that we can further discuss this at the end of the presentation in case there's other items or other things that you would like for us to include as we present these proposals to you. So a list of what's ahead. So the next step would be to shortlist the proposals. We will put together a special commission meeting in which you will review the committee rankings and you will have the ability to shortlist up to 6 proposals. After you have shortlisted those proposals, they will be available online for survey by city residents in order for them to provide feedback. We will develop an online survey to ensure that we capture their comments and which proposal they'd like the most. We will host then again another special commission meeting in which you will hear directly from the developers, and they will be presenting on their proposal. We will also provide you with a community feedback, and you will have the ability at that point to select up to 3 proposers for negotiations. And then you will direct city staff to move forward with negotiating the terms and conditions or other further direction depending on the results of our discussion. Just some built-in protections that I want to remind you of. The city is currently under no obligation to enter into a contract to sell this property. We reserve the right to cancel, reissue the invitation or withdraw it from consideration. You will have the ability to review the recommendations of the committees and shortlist the proposals. You have to provide us with the approval to negotiate, and we will have to bring back to you a draft term sheet and/or contract for you to review. And just as a reminder, we are unable to actually sell the property until we bring it back to you for 2 hearings, one of which has to be approved by a supermajority vote. So just want to keep that in mind that at any point in this process, we have the ability to withdraw for consideration the solicitations that were received. Final reminder, just to keep in mind, we are still under the cone of silence, so no individual is allowed to speak to either any of the individuals in this governing body or to city staff related as it relates to this project, either in person, by telephone, or in writing, or any other forms of communication. So this is in effect until we have a fully executed agreement with the selected developer. And that concludes my presentation, and I'll just go back to if we can revisit how you would like to move forward in terms of reviewing the proposals, and if there's any additional formatting or any other considerations that we should discuss or that we should have available, so when we present these proposals to you, you have the accurate information that you need to make a decision. So that concludes my presentation, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to address
All right,
them.
thank you for the presentation. I've got to go back. So I had heard that there was an issue with the RFP, the ITN, in terms of the description of the acreage. There was a typo or something like that. Talk to us about that, and were any respondents disadvantaged because of our error? Had you heard this?
Yes, sir. We did, and that was initially discussed when we reviewed the rankings. And so the developers understand that they're only able to develop up to 210 units of housing on the specific property. So they understand that that's a consideration, that they will have to make adjustments to their project and their performance based on that. But I do want to add that although there was an error in the acreage, because that was the information that was in PAPA. So we took that information directly from PAPA, but we also provided the developers with a survey, and the survey had the actual acreage or number of acres in that is encompassing of the project. So that error was just basically because we took it directly from PAPA.
So there was a discrepancy between the survey that was attached and the information on PAPA.
Correct.
Why didn't we just stop it and reissue the ITN so that everybody was working from the same information?
Okay. I'm going to ask the deputy city attorney to provide guidance on that.
That information, the discrepancy wasn't known to us until after the proposals were submitted, and then developers, and it was at one of the initial review committees that one of the developers said, hey, there was a discrepancy. Did anybody realize that? We did not know that up to that point. And so far, no developer has actually said they had an issue with that or wanted to change their proposal, so we have not actually had a developer come and say that there was a problem with that, they needed to change their proposal, or that there were going to be issues with that.
Well, again, out of an abundance of caution, whenever we found out that there was this discrepancy, out of an abundance of caution, so that we could ensure that everyone's playing from the same, singing from the same page of the hymnal, why wouldn't we have just put the brakes on it, reissued the ITN with the correct information?
It wasn't determined to really be a significant discrepancy at the time. This is an invitation to negotiate, and the final terms of the projects are all going to be negotiated and probably won't be what's originally proposed anyway, but we certainly can do that now if we feel that's necessary. We can take that extra step and reissue for a short period of time and get revised proposals.
Well, here's the deal, okay? I mean, acreage affects what you're putting on the space. And if you feel that it is acreage X number of acres, your proposal, your presentation may be different than if you feel that's Y acres on the proposal. And what you present as part of your proposal is what goes to these selection committees, and that's what they're considering. So if there is one party that figures there's more land based upon whether, I don't know if it's PAPA or whether it's a survey, and then they have more bells and whistles in their proposal, as opposed to another party who figures that there's less land and less room for bells and whistles, it just leaves too much room for discrepancy, and I just don't understand why, when we saw the discrepancy, we wouldn't have just said, all right, you know, let's bring this to a halt so that everyone is playing from the same set of rules.
Mayor, I get your point, but I also want to add that even if we did that, there were some developers that, even if we provided the correct acreage, and even if they looked at the survey, which in essence, they also probably should have looked at the survey in detail, there were developers that went above and beyond what would have been allowed if we had that acreage of 6.97. So they added above and beyond bells and whistles, and that was provided to us, Mayor, and when they weren't even allowed to do that, even if the acreage was 6.93 as opposed to the 6.5 that was outlined in the survey. So
I'm just talking about the purity of the process, all right? If we as a city are asking for proposals, and within that invitation itself, there is an internal discrepancy as to the acreage. To me, that is whether it's 5 acres, whether it's 0.5 acres, that's a significant problem on our fault.
Well, the process isn't like a bid where your proposal's hard and what comes in on this. It's an invitation to negotiate. So we were sort of looking at more in terms of the bigger picture of what the proposers are proposing and the mix of uses and how they use the waterway, and what almost every single one of those proposals will have to be somewhat zoning changes that we don't know whether the zoning, will be approved. Some include, above and beyond what zoning allows, different densities. So I don't know if there's any one that is just a perfect fit without any change based on the, so it's kind of being looked at from the bigger picture of what are they proposing, and then when we decide we negotiate, we'll kind of narrow down and get to that, because they're all just very different and unique looks, ideas for what's there for the community. So that's sort of what the approach is. This was sort of like the big picture and what are they proposing in general, and then we'll work through that as we continue as we negotiate with those.
Again, I'm not concerned about the responses to I'm concerned about the fundamental accuracy of our ITN and how that, whether it doesn't affect, we didn't do our job. And once we found out that we had made a mistake, stop it and reissue the ITN.
We can do that.
All right, any other questions? Commissioner Peduzzi.
Thank you, Mayor.
President Peduzzi, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Is there any way to, instead of just having to reissue the ITN, that you can simply contact all of those respondents and ask, let them know formally of that discrepancy and ask them, if it would fundamentally change their proposal, just to save the time of not having to reissue the ITN entirely?
We did do that.
Yes, I mean, we could ask them to resubmit their proposals based on the survey and make any revisions they want to their proposals based on the acreage in the survey.
Now, the other concern, I don't know if you had a follow-up, but that did raise a concern. Have they had access to the other proposals in the interim?
No.
All right.
Well, they've seen what's been presented at the public meeting, so they've seen the ideas that are presented by others at the public meetings.
And they also know, Mayor, they also understand our concerns in terms of what, in reviewing their application, what are some of the things that we looked at that we liked, some of the things that we probably needed to reevaluate. So all of the individuals who provided a response were at that meeting, and they were able to listen to all of those things. So should we reissue, they have the ability to tweak their entire proposal to fit what it is that both the city and the residents were looking for. So.
But everybody has that. They would all
Everybody.
be on the same page. Everybody
Yes.
has that. They're all working from the same page because they all know what the proper acreage is, and they can redo it. Okay, do you have a follow-up? Okay, Commissioner Lambert.
Thank you. Do we open ourselves up for any liability issues that it wasn't correct? And if we didn't change it moving forward?
It's it's an invitation to negotiate, so, I mean, we have the right to reissue, cancel, or do as we seem.
Right, but could one of the applicants, maybe who didn't get shortlisted, say, I didn't get shortlisted because of this discrepancy, I didn't put, as Mayor said, all these extra bells and whistles in, and so would they have any standing to come back to the city and that we'd be liable for that mistake to them?
It's hard to say. We don't know what the reasons that they'd be shortlisted from. If you looked at the committee reviews, I think the decisions of the committee really had nothing to do with the density or what's on there, but we will reissue and allow so that we don't have that issue. We will have them update it based on the current survey, so we are going forward at and even everybody's on the same level playing field going forward.
Commissioner Schoaf.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. I certainly understand the mayor's concerns with the purity of the process, but I just also want to do a level set as far as information that was provided to each of the bidders so that we can make sure that we address those very legitimate concerns, but keep this timetable moving forward. So every applicant or every submission to this process was given, in essence, the same misinformation. So they were given all the same fair playing field. And if anyone would have come back during that process and said, hey, there's a discrepancy here, there would have been an RFI that was issued and all applicants would have been given the same information. So in essence, everyone is given the same level playing field of, in this case, misinformation. So can you tell me what was the discrepancy, by how much? Are we talking acres and acres? Or are we talking a negligible amount of land?
We're talking somewhere between a quarter of an acre and a third of an acre discrepancy.
And so, again, I think those are very legitimate concerns, especially if there's a liability on the other side. Would we be able to address that liability if we as a commission heard all 9 of those proposals and gave those proposers the opportunity to clarify anything they would have done differently if they made one assumption or the other?
Yes. I mean, it's just a matter of whether you want to do that and let them do that first in writing so we have it a solid proposal, or whether you just want them to do it at a presentation, but we should give all of them the same opportunity.
And I think to Mayor's point, it's a liability and purity of process. So not being the legal arm of this, I would say whatever we can do to keep the process moving forward, but still from a liability perspective, make sure that we've given every submitter the most accurate and equal information.
Yeah, again, I'm not sure that there's a real liability issue there. If the developer should be using the survey to make their plans, which was the correct information. There was a small description up front that had an incorrect number in it, but we will certainly let them update their proposals to match the.
Well, I don't like rushing. I'd much rather it be right. And I'm very concerned about the purity of this process. And my opinion is that we throw it out, We reissue the ITN to make sure that all of the information contained therein is correct. Don't know why that wasn't caught before, be that as it may. Reissue it, let everybody respond based upon the accuracy of the information. I'm more concerned about us as a city getting this done properly and not trying to put Band-Aids on the pig afterwards or lipstick on the pig after the fact. No, throw it out, start over, get it done right. Let's see what comes in, and we'll take it from there. I mean, there's no particular, in my view, there's no particular time sensitivity involved here. We've owned this land since 2012. We haven't done anything with it. So if we're going to do something, let's get it done right, people.
Can I just, for clarification, or do we just want a new update from the 9 that proposed, or do we want to cancel and start all over so it's open to the world
My
again?
view, cancel, start over.
Okay.
We didn't do it right the first time. Let's acknowledge our mistake, do it right this time,
Okay.
please.
Okay.
That's my view. I don't know if that requires a vote or not. Commissioner Fox.
Thank you. I agree with you, Mayor. I think if we're going to put it back out, we should put it back out entirely because
Right, she just had to wait.
I'm not sure whether it would be a liability if there were other proposers that may have wanted to apply if they thought there was more space to work with or something like that. So I think if we're going to redo it, we should probably just put it out for everyone.
City Attorney, you want to weigh in?
Certainly, and I think that, as it relates to litigation, the cleaner your process is, the less likely you are to have to address challenges. And certainly, as Commissioner Fox was indicating, if it's a potential, now they should have read all of the documents if they were going to
But
propose.
we should have done it right, too.
But, yeah, you certainly clean up more if it's done all the way over and let everyone who might have proposed and didn't propose because of size, because they didn't do their homework, and because we had an error, you clean everything up. It's all fixed. So
That's what I'm
that's
suggesting.
my recommendation as well.
Mr. President and then Commissioner Lambert.
Thank you, Mayor. If, we've got to also keep in mind that we've got a citizen review committee that's now going to be asked to potentially review an entirely different set of proposals or additional proposals. If we could just make it as easy as possible on them, not require them to come into City Hall to pick up the packets, have them delivered to them, since they've already put a good amount of effort into it, I'd appreciate that.
Commissioner Lambert.
I'm still struggling with this, and I certainly want to get it right, but I'm struggling with all of the effort that has gone into it thus far. And I want to clarify 2 things. You haven't quite told us what acreage was listed on the survey, which acreage was listed on the ITN. I'm guessing by what you're talking about that the survey has more land than was indicated on the ITN?
It's the other way around. So the ITN had, I believe, 6.97. That's what was outlined in PAPA. And the survey had a lower amount. We'll look into that. 6.51 versus 6.97.
And so, in essence, all of the proposals, if they were following the ITN, they would have actually supplied more bells and whistles than if it were the smaller amount. So it's almost like they may have over-proposed.
The majority thing, as it relates to acreage, it's mostly due to how many units of housing they are allowed to develop. And Rick can further talk about that because it's related to planning and zoning, but it's mostly about, can you build 210 units or can you build 215 units? I don't know exactly what that number is, but Rick can further allude to it.
Listen, people, we didn't do it right, okay? So we're trying to fit this round hole into a square peg, or a square peg into a round hole, whatever it is. Forgive my misuse of metaphors. The bottom line is we didn't do it right. I'm surprised, quite frankly, that I didn't have a staff person come to me and say, Mayor, we didn't do it right. What should we do now? This is the first time we've had this conversation, and it disappoints me as staff that you didn't bring this to my attention as the CEO of this city. I shouldn't have to find this stuff out. Someone should bring it to me and say, this is what we did wrong. What should we do now? No, instead you tried to cover it up. That makes me very unhappy. So my suggestion is, again, let's get it right, get the information out to everybody. If we've got to make it easier on the citizens tab, but let us not proceed down this path when we know we screwed up. Commissioner Lambert, do you have a follow-up?
Just when we talked about purity of the process, I guess it really doesn't, my concern was, are we now muddying the waters because the proposers will have seen the other proposals? But I guess, maybe that just makes their second proposal even better. That was my concern, was maybe we were not having purity of process there, but I don't know that that's a negative thing for the city. So.
It's a consequence of our error. Whatever it is, it's a consequence of our error internally. Commissioner Sho.
Thank you, Mayor. I think to my colleagues on the dais here and to the mayor, everyone wants to see this project move forward and move forward as quickly as possible. We want to see the process pure. The mayor is the CEO of the city, and it is his process that moves this forward as far as an ITN moving forward or canceling it at any time. And so I think we've heard very clearly where the mayor stands on this today. And the one thing I would ask as 1/5 of this dais that we'll be looking at this down the line is that we just, again, go do the process right, but keep it moving in a forward direction as much as we can. Not to rush into it, but just keep that cadence moving forward, because I do know this is something that the South End neighborhoods and the entire city of West Palm Beach have been asking for a long time. So thank you.
Any other comments? Is this something that requires a vote?
You can certainly vote on it, but I think we've heard your direction loud and clear. Voting would make it a formal action.
Well, we can't take formal action here because this is a
That's
workshop. This is
correct.
not a
Then you should
meeting.
not vote.
My suggestion is, maybe we could reach a consensus, is that you throw the thing out, start over, and get it done right, please. Does anyone disagree with that? Okay, that's the instruction.
You got it.